I don't care who your father supposedly is. You two are not getting on this flight." The gate agent's voice was a blade, slicing through the murmur of the crowded Denver terminal as he glared at the two 17-year-old black teenagers. Jordan and Maya Washington stood frozen, clutching their first-class boarding passes. Their crisp, dark blue uniforms from the prestigious Colorado STEM Academy marked them as elite students. Around them, passengers waiting in line exchanged condescending smirks. It was a familiar scene. Another case of entitled kids trying to pull a fast one, thinking a private school blazer could get them into seats they obviously couldn't afford. But then, something shifted. The flicker of uncertainty in Maya's eyes vanished, replaced by a cold fire. Her shoulders squared. When she lifted her phone and looked directly at the agent, her gaze was so steady, so full of unyielding certainty, that his smug smile faltered. "We're calling our father," she said. Her voice was no longer pleading. It was calm, measured, and utterly terrifying. A sudden, dead silence descended over gate B-52. The agent's fingers paused over his keyboard. The smirking passengers abruptly found interest in their shoes. Because in that single, chilling moment, everyone realized they might have just racially profiled the absolute wrong families. Denver International Airport, under the shadow of the snow-capped Rockies, hummed with its typical energy on a crisp January morning. Aerotech Airlines Flight 2118 to Boston was scheduled to depart in 2 hours, giving the identical twins what should have been ample time for a smooth check-in. Jordan and Maya Washington had been meticulously planning this trip to an exclusive MIT Innovators Conference for months. At 17, they were the stars of the Colorado STEM Academy. Jordan, with a near-perfect GPA and an acceptance to Caltech's engineering program. Maya, a coding prodigy already fielding scholarship offers from MIT and Stanford. Their father, Marcus Thorne, a man intensely private about his professional life, had finally agreed to let them travel alone. It was a milestone symbolizing trust, independence, and the dawn of their adult lives. What made the trip even more significant was that it was the first time Marcus had insisted they use the full resources available to them. He had booked first-class tickets, not as a display of wealth, but as a practical measure to ensure his daughters, traveling for the first time alone, would have comfort and space to prepare for their conference. The twins approached the Aerotech Premier check-in counter with the quiet poise instilled by a life of discipline and academic rigor. Their home-printed boarding passes clearly showed seat assignments 2A and 2B. Their academy IDs were immaculate, their excitement simmering just beneath composed exteriors. Garrett Vance looked up from his computer, his professional efficiency faltering as his eyes landed on the two young black women. The practiced smile tightened. The welcoming tone he'd used with the white family before them evaporated. "Tickets and identification," he said, his voice flat and cool. Maya placed their documents on the counter. "Good morning. We're checking in for Flight 2118 to Boston." Garrett picked up their passes, his eyebrows arching dramatically as he saw the first-class seats. He turned them over, held them to the light, and scrutinized them with a suspicion usually reserved for counterfeit currency. "These don't look right," he announced, his voice just loud enough for the people nearby to hear. "Where did you get these?" Jordan's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice even. "Our father purchased them on the Aerotech website. Is there an issue?" Garrett's lips thinned into a hard line. "I'll have to verify these. Stay here." He vanished into a back office with their documents. The twins stood at the empty counter for nearly 20 minutes as other passengers were checked in seamlessly around them. They could feel the weight of the stares, hear the whispered assumptions. Two black girls, obviously out of their depth, trying to scam their way into first class. When Garrett returned, he slapped new boarding passes on the counter with an air of finality. "There was an error in the system," he declared. "You've been reassigned. Economy, seats 34E and 34F, gate B52. Maya picked up the new passes. "But these aren't the seats our father booked. We are confirmed in first class." Garrett leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial and hostile whisper. "Listen, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but certain people need to learn that first class has standards. You should be happy you're getting on the plane at all." The phrase "certain people" hung in the air like a toxin. The implication was unmistakable. Jordan's hands clenched into fists, but Maya laid a restraining hand on her sister's arm. They had been warned their entire lives that a black woman's righteous anger would always be used as a weapon against her. "Our father specifically purchased first-class tickets," Maya insisted, her voice a study in control. "I'd like to speak with your supervisor." Garrett's smile became predatory. "Supervisor's busy. If you don't like your seats, you can file a complaint later. Next." Humiliated, angry, but not broken, the twins took their new boarding passes and walked away. The stares of other passengers followed them, some tinged with sympathy, others with the smug satisfaction of having their prejudices confirmed. "We have to call Dad," Jordan whispered fiercely. "No," Maya said, her voice firm. "He has that big investors call today. He specifically told us not to call unless it was an absolute emergency." "This feels like an emergency to me." "We'll handle it," Maya promised, though a seed of doubt was beginning to sprout. "Let's just get through security." But Garrett Vance was already on the phone, alerting airport security about two suspicious individuals who had attempted to use what he claimed were fraudulent tickets. The discrimination they had just faced was only the opening act. When faced with blatant injustice but needing to reach a destination, is it better to comply quietly and fight later, or to stand your ground and risk everything? The TSA checkpoint should have been the most predictable part of their journey. Maya and Jordan were experienced flyers who knew the drill. But as they neared the screening lanes, a disturbing pattern emerged. White travelers were being waved through with cursory checks, while passengers of color were consistently being randomly selected for enhanced screening. "Random selection," announced Agent Fuller, though her eyes had been locked on the twins from the moment they entered the queue. There was nothing random about it. They were funneled into a separate lane where their meticulously packed carry-ons were unceremoniously dumped onto an inspection table. Agent Fuller's hands were rough and invasive as she rummaged through their belongings, her movements radiating suspicion. "What's this?" she demanded, holding up Maya's advanced robotics kit. "It's a project for the MIT conference," Maya explained. "The components are all FAA approved for carry-on." Fuller handled the delicate electronics with clumsy disdain, swabbing every component for explosives with exaggerated deliberation. "Lot of wiring in here. You an activist or something?" The question was an accusation, implying nefarious intent behind academic passion. "I'm a robotics engineer," Maya answered coolly. "Those are for a competition." Fuller's smirk suggested she didn't believe a word. When she found Jordan's astrophysics textbook, she held it up as if it were contraband. "What are these?" she asked, pointing to complex equations in the margins. "They're my notes," Jordan said patiently, "for my presentation on stellar nucleosynthesis." Agent Fuller scoffed and radioed for a supervisor, manufacturing drama around a textbook and creating a public spectacle that drew more stares. The pat-down that followed was humiliatingly thorough. The agent's hands lingered uncomfortably, while loud, pointed comments about their braided hair, "You never know what they might hide in there," were made for the benefit of anyone listening. How much silent complicity from bystanders is required for institutional discrimination to thrive? Have you ever witnessed something like this and stayed silent? And why? A man in line began recording the blatant harassment on his phone, but was immediately intercepted by another agent and forced to delete the video. Potential witnesses were systematically neutralized. By the time they were finally cleared, over an hour had been wasted. Their belongings were a jumble, Maya's robotics kit showed a cracked casing, and they were dangerously close to missing their flight. "Have a nice day," Agent Fuller said with a saccharine smile. "Better hustle. I hear Aerotech is very strict about departure times." As they repacked their bags, Jordan pulled out her phone. "That's it. I'm calling Dad." Maya glanced at her watch and shook her head. "He's in that closed-door meeting with the board right now. His assistant said he was not to be disturbed for any reason. We handle this ourselves. We tell him everything tonight." They were unaware that their father, Marcus Thorne, was at that very moment chairing that board meeting from his office. As the airline's newly appointed CEO, a fact he kept intensely private, he was reviewing deeply troubling customer service audits that detailed the exact type of discrimination his own daughters were currently enduring. The twins raced through the terminal, their initial excitement now curdled into a cold dread. They had experienced microaggressions before, but this felt different, coordinated, systematic, and intentional. At the Mountain Pass diner, their attempt to get a quick bite to eat was met with the same calculated hostility. The hostess, Chloe, looked up from her phone, her expression souring when she saw them. "How many?" she asked, her tone clipped. "2, please," Maya said. Chloe tapped her tablet with performative slowness. "It's going to be at least a 45-minute wait." When Jordan glanced past her at the dozens of empty tables scattered throughout the restaurant. "But there are tables right there." "Reserved," Chloe snapped, not looking up. "Your website specifically says you don't take reservations," Maya noted, holding up her phone with the diner's homepage displayed. "First come, first served." Chloe's face flushed. "The website's wrong. We take them now." As if on cue, a white family walked in. Chloe's expression transformed instantly. "3, right this way." She grabbed menus and led them to one of the supposedly reserved tables. "Excuse me," Jordan called out, her patience gone. "We were here first. You said there were no tables." Chloe turned back, her face a mask of annoyance. "Is there a problem?" The manager, a man named Rick, materialized as if he'd been waiting in the wings. He focused solely on the twins. "These girls are causing a scene," Chloe reported. "I told them we're on a wait list." "That is not true," Maya said calmly. "Your hostess told us it was a 45-minute wait for a table, then immediately seated a party that arrived after us." Rick's expression remained fixed. "I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voices," he said, though they hadn't raised them. "You're disturbing our other customers." The implied threat was clear: comply or be removed. Elias, an older janitor sweeping nearby, watched with concerned eyes. He shuffled over. "Manager," he said in a quiet voice, "I just cleaned off table 12 by the window. It's ready." "Stay out of this, Elias," Rick hissed. "Go mop the kitchen." Elias gave the girls an apologetic look and retreated, but not before discreetly pressing a couple of vending machine vouchers into Maya's hand. Can a single, small act of kindness from a stranger make a difference when you're facing overwhelming hostility? "I suggest you find somewhere else to eat," Rick whispered menacingly. "We reserve the right to refuse service." The message was brutally clear. This wasn't about seating. It was about who belonged. Hungry and demoralized, the twins left. As they walked toward their gate, sustained only by a bag of chips from a machine, they had no idea the final act of this ordeal was about to begin. Gate B-52 was a hive of pre-boarding activity. Aerotech Flight 21-18 was on time, and passengers were already forming queues. The twins glanced one last time at their downgraded boarding passes, seats 34E and 34F. But a nagging feeling compelled Maya to pull out her phone and open her email, where she found the original booking confirmation. Her father had indeed purchased seats 2A and 2B. "Look at this," she whispered to Jordan, showing her the screen. "Garrett Vance didn't just reassign us. He lied." "So what now?" Jordan asked, her jaw set. "We can't just storm the plane." "No," Maya agreed, her methodical, analytical mind kicking in. "We document. If we're going to fight this, we need irrefutable evidence." They approached the customer service desk, where an agent named Evelyn Reed was mechanically processing passenger queries. When the twins presented the discrepancy, original email versus new boarding passes, Evelyn barely looked at them. "The check-in agent made the necessary adjustments," she said dismissively. "Your booking was corrected." "This isn't a correction," Maya insisted, holding up the phone. "It's an unauthorized downgrade. My father paid for first-class seats." Evelyn finally looked up, her expression one of extreme annoyance. "First class is completely full now," she lied. "There's nothing I can do." A lie, because first class on this particular flight was never full on a weekday, a fact Evelyn knew perfectly well. But she wasn't about to extend her authority for two black teenagers she had already deemed unworthy. When Jordan raised her phone to record the interaction, Evelyn snapped. "No recording in the gate area. Put that phone away now, or I'll have security remove you." As boarding commenced, they watched first-class passengers breeze through. When their zone was called, they joined the line, resigned to fighting this battle later. But the gate agent scanning passes, a young man named Trevor Hayes, had been briefed by Garrett Vance. When the twins reached him, he made a show of scrutinizing their passes. "There seems to be a problem here," he announced loudly. "These passes appear to have been tampered with. I'm going to need to see additional identification." It was a ridiculous and inflammatory accusation. "These are our student IDs from the STEM Academy," Jordan explained, handing them over. "Student IDs are easily faked," Trevor declared theatrically. "I need official government ID." "We're 17, Maya pointed out. "We don't have driver's licenses. The airline confirmed these were acceptable when the tickets were booked." Trevor reached for his radio. "Security to gate B-52. We have a situation." The announcement echoed, drawing stares and whispers. "This is textbook racial profiling," Jordan stated, her voice shaking with controlled fury. "You're harassing us because we're black." Trevor's face reddened. "That is a very serious and false accusation, young lady. I could have you banned from this airline for that." Before the scene could escalate, a supervisor approached. Her name tag read Brenda Watson, and for a fleeting moment the twins felt a surge of hope. Surely another black woman would see what was happening and intervene. They could not have been more wrong. Brenda had spent 2 decades climbing the corporate ladder at Aerotech by learning one simple rule: never, ever rock the boat. She had assimilated so completely that she had become a gatekeeper for the very system that marginalized people who looked like her. "These two are refusing to follow security protocols and making false accusations of racism," Trevor reported, twisting the narrative. Brenda examined their documents with the same cold suspicion as her white colleagues. "Is there a reason?" she asked, her voice dripping with disapproval. Why you can't simply comply with standard procedures like everyone else? The betrayal was staggering. Here was someone who should have been an ally, instead acting as an enforcer. Is it a greater betrayal when someone who should be an ally instead becomes an enforcer of the very system that oppresses them? We have complied with every procedure, Maya said carefully. We've been illegally searched, had our paid tickets stolen, and now we're being treated like criminals. I don't care for your tone, Brenda said icily. One more outburst and I will have you removed from this airport. The threat was absolute. Defeated, the twins allowed their passes to be scanned and started down the jet bridge. They were exhausted, demoralized, and running out of options. They had documented every injustice, but they knew that one final confrontation awaited them before they reached their seats, a confrontation that would bring the entire corrupt system crashing down. The jet bridge felt like the final mile of a marathon they were being forced to run in shackles. At the aircraft door stood one last gatekeeper, Damien Croft, the flight's onboard services coordinator. He waved most passengers through with a cursory glance, but when Maya and Jordan reached him, his posture shifted into the aggressive stance they now knew so well. "Hold it," he said, blocking their path. He took their passes and made a show of checking a manifest. "There's some confusion here. These seats were already assigned." He was manufacturing a conflict, creating a bottleneck that trapped other passengers behind them and made the twins the center of a public spectacle. Maya's composure, stretched thin by hours of methodical abuse, finally snapped. "There is no confusion," she said, her voice clear and ringing with authority. "These are the seats we were assigned after our first-class tickets were illegally confiscated. We have been racially profiled, harassed, and lied to by every single employee we have encountered today, and we will not be moved." The directness of the challenge left Damien momentarily speechless. His face contorted with fury. No one, especially not a teenage girl of color, had ever spoken to him with such unwavering certainty. "That's it," he snarled, grabbing his radio. "Security to Jet Bridge B-52. I need passenger removal, now!" Within a minute, 2 airport security officers arrived, their expressions hard and their body language aggressive. "What's the problem?" one of them asked, addressing only Damien. "These 2 are being disruptive and refusing their seat assignment," Damien lied. "We are not being disruptive," Jordan shot back. "We are trying to get to the seats that are printed on the boarding passes your airline issued." The larger of the 2 guards stepped forward menacingly. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down." "We are calm," Maya stated, her voice steady as a rock despite the adrenaline coursing through her. "We have been targeted and mistreated since the moment we arrived at this airport. We are done being intimidated into silence." The jet bridge had become a stage. Passengers were openly recording on their phones. "No recording of security procedures," one guard yelled, a futile attempt to erase the witnesses. "According to this," Damien said, pointing to a meaningless piece of paper on his clipboard, "this flight is overbooked. You'll have to be rebooked on a later flight." "The flight is not overbooked," Maya said flatly, pointing toward the aircraft door. "I can see at least 4 empty seats in first class from here. You are removing us because you have decided we don't belong on this airplane." The accusation, clear, direct, and true, pushed Damien over the edge. "I've had enough of you 2, he seethed. "You're banned from this flight. Security, get them out of here." But Maya was already raising her phone. Not to record, but to dial. "We're calling our father," she announced, and something in her voice, a cold, absolute confidence, froze everyone in their tracks. Damien stopped his frantic gesturing. The security guards paused mid-step. For the first time all day, Maya Washington sounded like someone who held all the cards. "Dad?" she said into the phone, putting the call on speaker for everyone to hear. "Jordan and I are at DIA. Aerotech Airlines is refusing to let us on our flight. We need you." The voice that replied was calm, deep, and carried an unmistakable weight of power. "Maya, sweetie, tell me everything that's happening." Slowly. "Sir," Damien interrupted, "you can't be on the phone on the jet bridge." "Mr. Croft," the voice from the phone replied, its tone dropping to an icy chill that seemed to lower the temperature in the enclosed space. "My name is Marcus Thorne. You will not interrupt my daughter again." Damien's face went white. The security guards looked at each other, suddenly terrified. Marcus Thorne wasn't just a concerned father. He was the reclusive, newly appointed CEO of Aerotech Airlines. The twins stared at each other in stunned silence. "Now," Marcus continued, his voice echoing from the phone's speaker, "I want everyone there to listen very carefully, because what you've done today is not just unprofessional. It's about to cost this company everything." Well, what does it say about our society when justice often requires the intervention of immense power, rather than being the default standard for everyone? The stunned silence on the jet bridge was absolute. Damien Croft looked as if he'd seen a ghost. The security guards took an involuntary step backward. Passengers craned their necks, realizing they were witnessing a corporate drama of epic proportions. "Girls," Marcus Thorne's voice continued from the phone's speaker, "I need you to stay exactly where you are. Keep your phone on and keep recording. I am activating Emergency Protocol Omega." "Protocol Omega?" Jordan asked, her voice a whisper. "Dad, what is that?" "It means every employee who mistreated you today is about to find out why I have kept my position at this company private," Marcus said, his voice grim. The twins had known their father worked at a high level in the aviation industry, but they'd assumed he was a consultant or an executive at a smaller firm. The revelation that he was the CEO of Aerotech, one of the nation's largest and most technologically advanced airlines, was a tectonic shock. He had deliberately kept his role a secret, even from them, as part of a deep cover strategy to assess the company's real culture without the artificial deference his title would elicit. The board had hired him 6 months ago to fix Aerotech's declining reputation and stagnant growth. He'd suspected the problems ran deep. His daughters had just handed him the irrefutable, deeply personal proof. "Mr. Croft," Marcus continued, his voice now imbued with the full authority of his office, "you and your colleagues have just systematically harassed the CEO's children based on their race. More importantly, you have shown me exactly how Aerotech employees treat black customers when they believe no one of consequence is watching." Damien opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "Girls," Marcus said, his voice softening slightly, "what you experienced today wasn't a series of isolated incidents or misunderstandings. It was the predictable result of a corporate culture that has quietly tolerated racism because people like Mr. Croft assumed there would never be consequences." Maya finally understood. This was bigger than them. It was about an entire system. "But Dad, if you're the CEO, why didn't you know this was happening?" "Because, sweetheart," Marcus replied with raw honesty, "people perform differently when the boss is in the room. I had data, I had reports, but I needed to see it for myself. Today, thanks to you, I did." Passengers were now openly live-streaming the event, their own captions reflecting their dawning understanding of the situation. Some looked ashamed of their earlier complicity. Others just looked stunned at the dramatic turn of events. Damien finally found his voice, stammering, "Mr. Thorne, sir, this is just a misunderstanding. We were following standard procedures." "Mr. Croft," Marcus cut him off, his voice like ice. I have real-time access to this airline's entire digital infrastructure. I have the recording of Garrett Vance at check-in illegally changing my daughter's tickets. I have the security logs of Agent Fuller subjecting them to a biased search. I have the gate records of Trevor Hayes creating a false security flag. And I have your voice on this call, attempting to have paying passengers unlawfully removed from an aircraft. Do you still want to talk about standard procedures? Across the terminal, the massive departure boards began to flicker. One by one, every Aerotech flight was relabeled. Delayed. Return to gate. What's happening? Someone shouted. Protocol Omega, Marcus's voice explained with grim satisfaction, means every single Aerotech aircraft is now grounded. Over 300 planes. All passengers are being deplaned. The entire system is frozen pending an immediate top-to-bottom investigation into our company's culture. The sheer scale of the response was breathtaking. Marcus Thorne had just paralyzed one of America's biggest airlines. Sir, Damien gasped, this is a massive overreaction to a simple customer service issue. A customer service issue? Marcus retorted, his voice dangerously calm. My daughters were systematically humiliated and threatened with arrest because they are young, black, and flying first class. That is not a customer service issue, Mr. Croft. That is a massive civil rights violation that exposes this company to hundreds of millions of dollars in liability that has been intentionally hidden from our shareholders and the public. Emergency announcements began to fill the terminal as the unprecedented grounding took effect. Confusion and anger rippled through the thousands of stranded passengers. Now, Marcus commanded, I want every employee who interacted with my daughters today, Vance, Fuller, Hayes, and you, Croft, to report to the Airport Administrative Wing immediately. We are about to have a very public conversation about how Aerotech treats its minority customers, and it will all be on the record. Damien looked frantically at the security guards, but they were already backing away, wanting no part of the institutional implosion that was happening. Maya Jordan, Marcus said, his tone softening again. You're not getting on that plane today. Instead, you're going to help me change this entire industry. Because what happened to you happens to thousands of other people every single day. And starting today, it stops. They had no idea that far away, powerful forces were already mobilizing to crush their father's crusade and protect the very system that had just been exposed. When powerful people try to manage a crisis by silencing the victims, is it driven by malice or a misguided belief that they are protecting the institution they serve? While chaos consumed Denver International Airport, an emergency video conference was underway in a sleek Manhattan boardroom. Lawrence Sterling, Aerotech's largest and most influential investor, stared at the cascading red numbers on his financial terminal. Each grounded flight was costing the company nearly $70,000 an hour. With the entire fleet paralyzed, the immediate financial hemorrhage was already in the tens of millions and climbing. But the stock price was secondary to the reputational firestorm erupting on social media. Get Vanessa Cole in operations on the line, now, Sterling barked at his assistant. And conference in every board member. Everyone except Thorne. Sterling had fiercely opposed Marcus Thorne's appointment as CEO, arguing that the former Silicon Valley disruptor didn't understand the culture of a legacy airline. What he meant was that a black CEO had no place at the head of their table. He'd been overruled, but he had been waiting for Marcus to fail. Now, Marcus had handed him the perfect weapon. Vanessa, Sterling said when Aerotech's ambitious VP of Operations joined the call. Thorne's daughters are still at DIA. They are the root of this disaster. I need them contained before they do any more damage. Vanessa Cole had risen through the ranks by intuitively understanding what powerful men like Sterling wanted, especially when they couldn't say it outright. What do you want me to do, Lawrence? Get them out of the public eye. Escort them to the VIP Polaris Lounge. Give them anything they want, but get them somewhere private where they can't talk to the media. Frame it as being for their own protection. And Vanessa understood. The girls needed to be silenced. Sterling's next call was to Nathan Chen, Aerotech's head of IT. I need every digital trace of this incident erased. Security footage, ticketing logs, personnel reports, all of it. If anyone asks, it was a system-wide glitch caused by the grounding. Nathan hesitated. Sir, altering official records like that is a felony. What's a felony? Sterling corrected sharply. Is a rogue CEO destroying billions in shareholder value over a personal vendetta. The board will protect you. Just make it disappear. Within the hour, Sterling had orchestrated a full-scale counterattack. The PR department began circulating stories of disruptive teens causing a scene at the airport. A network of paid social media influencers began questioning the girl's character. Official press releases downplayed the discrimination claims as unverified allegations, while emphasizing the catastrophic economic fallout of the grounding. Meanwhile, Vanessa Cole had arrived at DIA. Flanked by a security detail, she approached the twins with a performance of deep concern. Jordan, Maya, she said warmly, I'm Vanessa Cole, VP of Operations. I am just horrified by what I'm hearing about your experience. Her smile was flawless. Your father asked me to personally see to your comfort and safety, she continued. We have the Polaris Lounge ready for you, away from all this chaos. Maya, who was still on the phone with Marcus, gave Vanessa a cool, appraising look. Dad, Vanessa Cole is here. She's offering to take us to the VIP lounge. There was a pause. Put her on speaker, Maya. When Vanessa heard Marcus's voice, her smile wavered for a fraction of a second. Marcus, I'm so glad we connected. I just want to assure you I am taking this with the utmost seriousness. That's very considerate, Vanessa, Marcus replied, his tone unreadable. But my instructions to my daughters were explicit. They are to remain in public, in the main terminal, where their interactions with staff have witnesses. Vanessa's smile became strained. Of course, Marcus. But with the media attention, it would be much safer and more comfortable for them in the lounge. Actually, Jordan interjected politely, we're quite comfortable right here. But we appreciate your concern. Vanessa's polished facade finally cracked. She leaned in, her voice a venomous whisper. Listen to me. Your father is tanking this company. He's about to lose his job. The smart play for you and your family is to accept our hospitality and let the adults clean up this mess. Is that a threat against my daughters, Vanessa? Marcus asked from the phone, his voice dangerously quiet. Vanessa recoiled. Not at all. I'm simply looking out for their well-being. Then you'll respect their decision to stay put, following my explicit orders, Marcus said. And Vanessa? Before you try to intimidate my children again, you might want to pack up your office. It'll save you a trip. He disconnected the call. Vanessa stared at the twins with pure fury, then turned and stalked away. But the battle was just beginning. Unbeknownst to them all, their social media accounts were already being flooded with sophisticated, deep-faked posts designed to discredit them and destroy their reputations before the truth could take hold. Nathan Chen sat at his terminal in Aerotech's vast IT hub, his hands shaking as he prepared to execute Lawrence Sterling's command. Erasing evidence was a line he never thought he'd be asked to cross. As he keyed in the deletion sequence, a small window popped up on his screen. Access denied. Security Protocol Omega is active. He tried again, using his highest-level administrative credentials. The same result. Then he noticed a tiny, unfamiliar icon blinking in the corner of his monitor. His own system was being monitored, His phone buzzed. It was an unlisted number. "Mr. Chen?" a calm, intelligent voice said when he answered. "This is Maya Washington. I believe you're trying to erase security footage related to an incident at Denver International Airport." Nathan nearly dropped the phone. "How did you get this number? Who is this?" "I'm something of a programmer myself," Maya replied, her voice matter of fact. "My dad said you were one of the good ones in the IT department. That's why I'm calling you directly instead of just logging your failed attempts to tamper with federal evidence." Nathan's mind spun. He had never considered that Marcus Thorne's teenage daughter might be a hacker, or that she'd have the foresight to anticipate their cover-up. "Look, this is all just a big misunderstanding." "No," Maya cut him off. "It's not. Every byte of data from today, every video file, every log, every personnel record has already been backed up to encrypted off-site cloud servers. Neither you nor Mr. Sterling can touch it. I also deployed a script that's currently tracking the deep-faked social media posts being attributed to us. Did you know that digital impersonation for the purpose of defamation is a federal crime, Mr. Chen?" He felt a drop of sweat run down his spine. I was just following orders." "From Lawrence Sterling, not from the CEO," Maya corrected him. "You have a choice. You can conspire to obstruct justice, or you can do the right thing." While Maya was neutralizing the IT threat, Jordan was reaching out to potential witnesses. Elias, the elderly janitor from the airport diner, responded to her email almost immediately. "I have been recording my manager Rick for months," he wrote back. "I have audio of him using racist slurs about customers, including what he said right after you left. He told the hostess to stop helping those people because they don't belong in places like this." Other passengers who had recorded the confrontations at security and the gate began finding the twins online, flooding their inboxes with their footage and messages of support. An undeniable mountain of digital evidence was accumulating, but the reputational attack was also intensifying. Sophisticated fake posts appeared on platforms, showing the twins appearing to brag about their wealth and making racially charged comments, playing into every toxic stereotype. Anticipating this, Maya had already contacted the IT director at her own school, who helped her publish their verified social media histories, complete with metadata proving the other posts were forgeries. "These fake accounts were created 2 hours ago," Maya tweeted from her real account. "Their IP addresses trace back to servers owned by an Aerotech-affiliated PR firm. Screenshot everything." The digital battlefield became a public spectacle. Tech communities began dissecting the fake posts, exposing them as crude and obvious forgeries. Meanwhile, the authentic witness videos were going viral, painting a picture of systematic, blatant discrimination. Lawrence Sterling watched his meticulously planned cover-up unravel in real time. The twins hadn't just defended against his attack, they had turned it back on him, amplifying the negative PR for Aerotech. "Sir," his assistant said nervously, "the hashtag Aerotech Airlines is trending globally. We're being inundated with posts from other customers sharing their own stories of discrimination." What began as an attempt to silence 2 teenagers had unleashed a torrent of public testimony. Current and former Aerotech employees started leaking internal documents describing a corporate culture where bigotry wasn't just tolerated, but often rewarded. Nathan Chen made his choice. Instead of deleting the evidence, he began downloading and securing all of it. He then sent a single, encrypted message to Marcus Thorne. "I have everything. I will testify." It was an act that would either save his career or end it, but he could no longer be complicit. By nightfall, the corporate counteroffensive had failed spectacularly. In its place was a digital uprising. Sterling's conspiracy was in shambles, but he had one last move: a call for an emergency board meeting to remove Marcus Thorne from power. A meeting that would determine the future of Aerotech Airlines and everyone involved. In the modern age, can the power of digital evidence and social media truly level the playing field against corporate and institutional power? The Aerotech Emergency Board meeting convened via secure video link at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. The faces of the 14 board members were grim. Lawrence Sterling had spent the day marshalling his forces, framing the narrative as a catastrophic overreaction by an emotionally compromised CEO. "Colleagues," Sterling began, his voice exuding a calm authority he did not feel. "We face an existential crisis. Our CEO has unilaterally grounded our fleet over a personal family squabble, a clear and flagrant violation of his fiduciary duty." Aerotech's stock had plunged 22% since the grounding. The financial losses were approaching $250 million. Several board members, their own fortunes tied to the company's stock, nodded gravely. "I move that we immediately relieve Marcus Thorne of his duties, pending a full investigation," Sterling declared. "This is not, as the media is desperate to claim, an issue of race. It is an issue of sound corporate governance." Before the motion could be seconded, Marcus's face appeared on the screen. He was in a conference room, surrounded by monitors displaying spreadsheets and documents. "Before you vote on Mr. Sterling's motion," he said, his voice calm and steady, "I believe you are entitled to have all the facts." He clicked a button. His screen split to show a series of charts and internal reports that made several board members physically recoil. "What you are viewing," Marcus explained, "is a summary of the 2,417 racial discrimination complaints filed against this airline over the last 5 years. Complaints that were systematically suppressed by previous management, a management team that was put in place and overseen by our executive chairman, Mr. Sterling." The data was damning. Complaints against Aerotech were nearly 400% higher than the industry average. A pattern of burying complaints, intimidating employees, and concealing legal exposure was clear. "This is a smokescreen," Sterling sputtered. "You are trying to deflect from your own reckless actions." "My daughter's experience was not an isolated incident, Lawrence," Marcus countered. "It was a symptom of the disease this company has been hiding for a decade. A disease that represents a catastrophic legal and financial liability you knowingly concealed from this board." He switched screens again, this time to a list of pending lawsuits and sealed regulatory inquiries. "These cases alone represent a potential liability of over $1 billion. That, Mr. Sterling, is the real breach of fiduciary duty." The virtual boardroom fell into a stunned silence. Eleanor Vance, the chair of the audit committee, spoke first. "Marcus, are you saying you knew about this before today?" "When you hired me 6 months ago," Marcus explained, "you tasked me with turning this company around. I immediately began a deep dive investigation into our culture. I was preparing my report to present to this board next week when my own daughters became the latest victims of the very system I was investigating." The board members looked at Sterling with a new, dawning horror. The narrative was no longer about Marcus's overreaction, but about Lawrence Sterling's potentially criminal concealment of liability. "Furthermore," Marcus continued, "since this incident began, there have been coordinated attempts to destroy evidence and launch a defamatory social media campaign against my minor daughters. Our internal investigation traces those directives back to Mr. Sterling's office." "These are baseless lies to cover your own incompetence," Sterling shrieked, his composure finally shattering. You keep this up and I will use every resource I have to destroy you, Thorne. You, your reputation, your precious daughters, all of it." The threat, raw and vicious, hung in the silent air. Marcus smiled, a cold, thin smile. "Thank you for that, Lawrence. I should remind everyone that this emergency session is being recorded, as required by corporate bylaws. Would you care to rephrase your threat against 2 teenage girls for the official record?" Sterling realized, far too late, that he had walked directly into a perfectly laid trap. His veneer of professional concern had been stripped away, revealing the ugly reality beneath. One by one, board members who had previously supported him began to distance themselves. "Here is what will happen now," Marcus said, his voice now a commanding force. "Effective immediately, we are implementing a zero-tolerance anti-discrimination program. We are hiring a third-party firm to conduct a full, independent audit of all past complaints, and our financial disclosures will be amended to reflect our true legal exposure." He looked directly into the camera at Sterling. "As for your motion to remove me, I welcome a vote. But understand this. If I am removed, my first call is to the Securities and Exchange Commission. My second is to the Department of Justice. The choice is yours." When Sterling's motion never received a second. The vote to support Marcus's reform plan was unanimous. What's more effective for creating change? Appealing to a corporation's sense of morality, or proving that discrimination is financially disastrous? The Aerotech story dominated the national news cycle for weeks. It was no longer just about an airline grounding. It was a national conversation about institutional racism in corporate America. Jordan and Maya, with their father's guidance, published a long-form essay online titled, "What Happened at Gate B52?" They laid out every detail of their ordeal, supporting it with a trove of evidence: audio clips, video recordings, witness statements, and internal documents leaked to them by Nathan Chen. The post was methodical, factual, and devastatingly effective. Within days, Aerotech Airlines had become a repository for thousands of similar stories from people of color, detailing their own experiences with discrimination in air travel, hotels, and retail. A movement was born. Garrett Vance, the check-in agent, gave a disastrous interview to a local Denver station. "I was just following the procedure for suspicious ticketing," he insisted. When asked what was suspicious, he blurted out, "Well, certain people don't really belong in first class." The clip went viral, becoming a meme that encapsulated the very bias he was trying to deny. Agent Fuller of the TSA was placed on permanent administrative leave after her history of biased searches was confirmed by internal audits. The security footage she swore didn't exist was found, corroborating every detail of the twins' account. Trevor Hayes at the gate and Damian Croft on the jet bridge were fired. The restaurant manager, Rick, was terminated after Elias's recordings were made public. But the real reckoning happened at the corporate level. Lawrence Sterling was forced to resign in disgrace after shareholders threatened a class action lawsuit. His career, built on a foundation of ruthless power, was over. His final, desperate threats against the twins had been his undoing. Marcus Thorne held a live press conference with Jordan and Maya by his side. The image was a powerful one. A black family, united and unbowed, demanding accountability. "What happened to my daughters was not an anomaly," Marcus declared. "It was a symptom of a systemic sickness. Today, we begin the cure." He outlined his radical reform plan. Mandatory, in-depth anti-bias training for every employee. A new independent passenger advocacy board with the power to investigate and discipline. And most surprisingly, he announced that the lower-level employees who had discriminated against his daughters would not be fired. Termination is the easy way out, he explained. It doesn't solve the underlying problem. Instead, these employees will be the first participants in our new Accountability Council. They will help us design the training that will prevent this from ever happening again. True accountability requires education, not just expulsion. The decision was controversial. Some praised its focus on restorative justice, while others demanded harsher punishment. This was never about revenge, Jordan said in a statement. It's about making sure this never happens to another person. What is true accountability? Is firing a few bad apples enough, or does real change require a deeper, more difficult process of education and systemic reform? By the end of the week, the story had prompted congressional hearings on discrimination in the travel industry. Aerotech's competitors, seeing the reputational and financial devastation, began scrambling to implement their own anti-discrimination policies. The movement, started by two teenagers at a single airport gate, was now poised to reshape corporate America. 6 weeks after the incident at DIA, the inaugural meeting of the Aerotech Accountability Council convened. It was an unlikely group. Civil rights leaders, HR experts, victims of past discrimination, and the very employees whose actions had catalyzed this entire movement. Garrett Vance sat listening, his face a mask of discomfort, as Elias, the janitor, described the helpless feeling of watching customers being mistreated. Every time I saw the manager turn someone away because they were Hispanic or Black, it felt like a small part of my own soul died, Elias said. But I have a family. I needed my job. So I swept the floor and said nothing, and I hated myself for my silence. Garrett had spent 6 weeks in intensive workshops, forced to confront a lifetime of unexamined biases. I honestly never thought of myself as a racist, he admitted, his voice quiet. I thought I was just doing my job, being careful. But listening to all these stories, I see now that I was creating different rules for different people based on my own assumptions. The transformation in Brenda Watson, the Black supervisor who had sided with the system, was the most profound. Her breakthrough came when a young flight attendant described being told by a manager to tame her natural hair, to be more professional. I said those exact same words to a new hire 2 years ago, Brenda confessed, her voice thick with emotion. I thought I was helping her navigate the system. I see now I was just helping the system continue to crush people who looked like me. The council's work yielded radical changes. Aerotech implemented the most aggressive anti-bias training program in the corporate world, focusing on bystander intervention and restorative justice. An anonymous reporting system was created, and for the first time, reports were investigated by an independent body, leading to real consequences. Executive bonuses were now tied directly to diversity metrics and reductions in discrimination complaints. Financial analysts had predicted doom. Lawrence Sterling, from his forced retirement, penned an op-ed forecasting Aerotech's collapse under the weight of woke corporate policies. But the opposite happened. After an initial dip, customer satisfaction scores soared, especially among minority travelers. Employee retention improved dramatically. Several large corporations, impressed by Marcus's ethical leadership, moved their massive travel contracts to Aerotech. It turns out, Marcus told the board in a later meeting, that treating human beings with dignity is not just morally right, it's incredibly good for business. Discrimination isn't just an ethical failure, it's a market failure. Jordan and Maya became powerful, reluctant advocates, speaking at conferences and helping other companies develop similar programs. But the real test was yet to come. In 1 week, they were scheduled to fly to Boston again on Aerotech for the rescheduled MIT conference. They would see for themselves if the changes were real, or just very expensive corporate theater. The world was watching. 6 months after their ordeal, Jordan and Maya Washington stood once again at Gate B-52 at Denver International Airport. The gate agent, a young man with a warm smile, checked their passes with a professional ease that was, in its normalcy, remarkable. "Boston today? Have a great conference," he said, treating them with the same casual respect he showed everyone. They boarded the plane, settling into their first-class seats. The flight attendant, who offered them a pre-departure drink, wore her hair in intricate locks, a style that would have been a policy violation under the old regime. She moved with a confidence that spoke volumes. The changes at Aerotech weren't just on paper. As the plane ascended over the Rockies, Maya looked out the window. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we had just accepted those economy tickets?" she asked. "Sometimes," Jordan admitted. "But then I remember the email from Elias and Nathan Chen's courage and all the other people who spoke up. This was never just about us." The ripples from that day continued to spread. Garrett Vance now co-led sensitivity training workshops for customer service professionals across the industry. Brenda Watson had been promoted to Aerotech's Vice President of People and Culture, where she was spearheading programs to dismantle the very systemic barriers she once upheld. Even Lawrence Sterling had, in a strange twist, funded a university chair for the study of corporate ethics, his reputation laundering attempt inadvertently advancing the cause he'd tried to crush. The airline industry was fundamentally different. Congressional action had led to the Passengers' Bill of Rights, which mandated transparent reporting of discrimination complaints and established an independent federal body to investigate them. The twins themselves were on a different path. Jordan had changed her major from engineering to public policy. Maya was dual majoring in computer science and law. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our final descent into Boston," the captain announced. "On behalf of our entire crew, thank you for flying Aerotech. We know you have a choice in who you fly with, and we appreciate you trusting us to provide not just safe, but respectful travel." The words were no longer just a script. They were a mission statement. As they deplaned, a young black girl, no older than 9, tugged on her mother's sleeve and pointed at them. "Mom, is that them, the sisters from the internet?" The mother smiled and nodded. The little girl looked at Jordan and Maya with wide, admiring eyes. For this child's generation, the expectation of being treated with dignity was now the baseline. That was the truest victory. They walked through the Logan terminal toward their future, a future they had reshaped, not just for themselves, but for countless others. Their experience had proven that systems aren't immutable. They change when individuals refuse to accept injustice, when they weaponize the truth, and when they have the courage to demand that institutions live up to their own professed values. One policy, one training session, one changed heart at a time, the world was becoming a slightly more just place. And it had all started at Gate B-52 with a single, unwavering statement. "We're calling our father, calling our